Justin, it's so nice to meet you. You've long been one of my favorites, and I want to say that Barbarian is absolutely my favorite horror movie this year.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know it's true. I mean, and I say that it's been like a stacked year for horror, and
Oh,
this
that's so
movie
kind of you.
just blew my mind. I really
Oh,
loved it. I'm sure a million people have already told you this, but earlier today, Stephen King even praised Barbarian on Twitter, and I
no,
just
I didn't know that.
did you not know that? Yeah,
No.
he said he loved it and it was crazy good. And
Oh, that's gonna make me. I'm getting like, wow, that makes me
yes,
emotional.
I want to know what's your reaction to the horror king himself saying he loved your movie.
Oh my God, I grew up with Stephen King. I'm just the biggest fan. That's wild. It's wild. I sometimes wonder if people I really admire are, you know, have seen things I was in or know or aware of me, and it's just the fact that he saw me in something that I'm proud of is really man. I mean, there's no higher praise
Yeah.
than from somebody like that. That's wild. I've been watching his, I love his work. It's such a huge part of my life.
Well, yeah, I want while we're on the subject, I mean, what's your favorite Stephen King adaptation?
Well, I love different seasons, or four seasons. Is it different seasons? I should probably get this right since I said what a big fan I've, but that whole book, I mean, the book is Apt Pupil, and I think Shawshank's in that, and The Body, and what's the one that, not the Langoliers, I almost did one. I almost did an adaptation of, it was about a guy. Oh God, it was his shortest short story. I think it was an adaptation of that. It was one they haven't been able to do. It's about a guy who tries to quit smoking. Does this sound familiar? I remember that was the clip.
No, it's not ringing a bell. But there's so many.
There's so many.
Like, yeah,
my favorite is Stand by Me. Is The Body.
that's fantastic. Yeah,
the book and the movie. But God, I love Christine. I love Carrie. You know, all of the. I just love his stuff so much. I have for years. I love the new It movies. It's exciting to meet Bill Skarsgård. I met Bill just one night because our stuff didn't really overlap, and so he was leaving when I was just coming into Bulgaria. But I was such a fan of those movies. Yeah, all of his work. I'm that really like means I can't believe I didn't know that.
Well, I'm happy to break that for you. But yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, he said it was. He said it was crazy good, and he loved it. So,
oh wow, it's wild. I'm also really proud of Zach. He's just he's been in the business for a long time and really hung in there with this script. You know, a lot of, I know he'll talk to you about this, but so many people passed on it. I think everyone passed on it, and so it's nice to be a part of his story. You know, the fact that he even got it made, and when I remember reading it and just thinking how original and wonderful the script was, but I can understand why people passed, because it was so different, and it takes such wild
it's very
turns.
unique. Yeah. So, which leads me to the question, what kind of bond do you develop with another man once you've laid across his lap and suckled at his prosthetic nipple?
A very deep one, and yeah, I was just talking about this. Matthew, who I think is so good in the movie. That's a really difficult part to find the humanity in that character, and to treat it with such sensitivity and care, like humanity. And that's testament to Matthew, but also Zach. I mean, that Zach wrote that kind of a part. I think that was so pleasantly surprising to see when I first watched the movie, to discover how sympathetic that character is, and how moving all that is. But at the time, Matthew is such I loved him right away. We like connected over dumb humor and movies and stuff. But he was an easy person to joke with, and I just couldn't get over the makeup, how it was just, he would walk around like that and would be so casual in that suit, and the breasts and the hair and the teeth, and he would talk about what was for lunch and what they had at craft service, and he was hoping whatever, something really innocuous, and he would forget that he was wearing that stuff, so it was hilarious to me. And when we were doing that scene, I remember really getting worked up, because there's such a fine line, Chris, between in a scene like that, especially between like something wild and original, whatever that is, and something unintentionally funny, you know, like if you're not committing, it can be,
I can imagine.
It can be farcical, you know, it can be real, like, and so I was trying to stay in this world of, because I guess I have no frame of reference for that outside of when I was an infant, and it was probably not nearly as traumatic. I don't know what that's like, nor does probably anyone else to be forced.
You're one of the few people who might know what that's like now.
Right. But all I know is that it would be extreme and traumatizing and something that I would have like total resistance to, you know.
Now, what do you think is worse, drinking the mother's milk, being force fed a rat, or, you know, getting hit in the face with a wrench?
You mean in life? Like if I were to choose one of those in real life, I would choose the worst one. I think would be the wrench, only because it could pretty easily kill you. I don't think a masticated rat would kill you. It'd be gross, but and nor would the breast, I don't think, unless her milk were somehow poisoned. But I think the wrench could actually kill you.
Yeah, that's probably
sure. But I remember Matt, like when we were doing that, Matthew would, from beneath that, you know, grotesque makeup, I would hear him go, hey, like in between takes, he'd be like, hey dude, you okay? You need anything? You know, do you need any like water or anything, man? And it was so kind, because his instinct is to be kind and generous. He's a generous actor. But there was a part of me that was like, Matthew, you're making this more challenging, because it's harder. I'm struggling I have to commit to finding this grotesque, and you're being so sweet and like ironically so maternal, right? That it's finding it hard to commit to the, you know, to the resistance to this. You're going to make me want to attach. To your nipple because of your maternal kind, your energy, your sweet maternal energy.
That's amazing. I have to tell you this. So Jeepers Creepers was the first movie I ever went to go see at the movie theater when I got my driver's license.
That's wild.
I didn't see a trailer. I just got my driver's license. First thing I wanted to do was go to the movie theater by myself. I saw the poster. I went in there not knowing anything about it. And I loved it. And I had the exact same experience again with Barbarian, because I didn't see anything, I didn't see a trailer. I went in completely blind. And what I did note and find interesting was that I felt like AJ has a very similar fate as Derry does. I was curious if that was in any way an homage or just pure coincidence.
I wondered that myself. I think Zach, I remember shooting it and Zach saying something. I have a terrible memory, so I may be making some of this up, but I remember him commenting on it being an homage, not an homage, but like a reference, like an Easter egg or I forget how he phrased it, but a reference to that movie. I don't know if he had planned on that. I don't know if it was in the original before he reached out to me about the part. He certainly didn't write the part with me in mind or anything, but I wondered if that specific fate was a reference to Jeepers Creepers. You'd have to ask Zach. I think it was a little bit of a wink. I do, but it was interesting, Chris, to have the experience of watching, because I saw it with an audience. The opening weekend, I saw both movies opening weekend, and one I saw both with like pretty crowded theaters, and my experience with this one was a little different in that when I met that fate, when I had my eyes gouged out, that gruesome death, everybody like burst into applause. And like, and they celebrated my gruesome death, which made me so happy, you know. There were a couple moments like that when I saw it with Zach, with the director at Comic-Con, where people would like boo or they would have an audible reaction to my character, like that, and I'd look at Zach, and we just had this. We gave each other this look, like they're invested, you know, they're in, which is a thrilling thing to be a part of.
I mean, I get it, because I mean, I've loved your work for 20 years now, and it's very difficult for me to dislike you as a character, and. By the end, I didn't cheer, I didn't cheer for that, but I definitely was like,
you weren't upset.
that guy maybe had it coming.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I felt like he definitely had it coming. It's we were just watching, my girlfriend and I were watching Silence of the Lambs. We've been watching one horror movie a night in October. We've been spectacular.
What's been your favorite so far that you've watched this month?
I loved, this was actually Zach's recommendation. He came out with a list on Twitter. And so per his recommendation, we saw the Audition, which I loved. And I loved Saint Maud. That has really like stuck with me.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's great. It's this British horror. It came out just a couple of years ago. It's about this woman's, you just should see that. I was about to tell you what it was about, and I think with any good horror movie, the less you know, the better.
Perfect.
But I think I love Ari Aster. We haven't seen Hereditary this time around, but I've seen it so many times. Revisiting The Exorcist was amazing. I forgot how scary that movie, how much it holds up too. But Silence of the Lambs is just incredible, and but I was thinking how fun it was at the end. Anthony Heald, who plays the head of the psychiatric prison that Anthony Hopkins is in. That character? He has kind of a small. He plays such like smarmy, smug. I worked with him.
I think I know who you're. I think I know who you're talking
Anthony
about.
Heald. He's just a great actor, great character actor, and he's so slimy in the movie. He's so unlikable that when at the very end, when Hannibal Lecter hangs up the phone and you see that he goes, "I'm going to have an old friend for dinner." It's him. It's Anthony Heald. And there's something so satisfying about the fact that he's going to meet that demise, that it's like you're kind of cheering for Hannibal Lecter. It's really like a feat of but a lot of it has to do with Anthony Heald's performance. How just smarmy he is. It's so great.
Well, while I've got you, I've only got time for one more quick question.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier, we talked about the wrench, but I'm a huge Dodgeball fan. And you've probably been asked a million times, but has there ever been talks about getting the gang back together for some sort of sequel?
Well, there has been. We talked about it on, not to shamelessly plug my podcast, but I do a podcast with my brother called Life is Short. And when we had Ben Stiller on, and I asked Ben about this because I had just worked with Vince Vaughn again. Vince wrote this movie. It's like a parody of Christmas movies that I have coming out this December, called Christmas with the Campbells. So I had just been around Vince a lot, and Vince had been telling me that he has this great idea for a sequel. And I don't know if he had yet pitched it to Ben, but I kind of set up the pitch. I felt like I should facilitate the pitch, because I was so, of course, I would love to do it, and I hope that it ends up happening. But I think Ben is I think what he told me on that podcast was that he's a little trepidatious about doing a sequel to something so beloved, something that people enjoy so much, that it's very risky. You don't want to on the original. You want something just as good. And so I think he's a little wary of that, of trying to recreate something that was very specific to that time. But I hope he comes around on it. I hope Vince is a very convincing person. So I'm just hoping Vince can convince him with that, with his idea. It's a funny idea. I don't want to say what it is.
And I feel like that stems from Ben Stiller's reaction to Zoolander 2, which is bullshit, because Zoolander 2 is great. And I don't understand why people want to knock it, because I feel like if you love the original Zoolander, you'd love Zoolander 2. I don't understand why anybody.
Yeah. Well, it must just be Ben is like, he's such a, I don't know, he's such a master of what he does. And I imagine he holds himself to the highest standard. And so if he wasn't happy with it, who knows? But I think, I know Ben loves Dodgeball and loves that character. I remember how much fun he had playing it. He was always laughing. He was, when we kind of got together years later to do a charity, we did we did something. We did like a little mini reunion for this charity Omaze, and Ben put on the mustache again, and he I remember him talking about how happy it made him being, playing White Goodman again, and how much fun that character was. So I'm hoping they do. I do know that Vince has a great idea for it, and it's just a matter of getting Ben on board. Maybe if you put it out there, Chris, if you help put out the desire for it.
I will shout from the rooftops louder than anybody.
Okay.
I'm even rocking the stash now.
You are a little bit.
This was just for this interview.
I appreciate it.
Justin, thank you so much for your time, man.
Chris, I really
an honor
appreciate
to meet you.
No, I want to say thank you for such kind words. It's not lost on me. It means a lot, and I'm not good with compliments, but it really does mean a lot. It's kind of you to say.
Well, thank you. And any opportunity I have to interview you, I would jump at the chance. So
I look forward to it. We'll do more.
All right. Sounds great, Justin.
Thanks. Okay.
Bye,
thanks, Chris.